Oh, hello there. Ed Carbajal here for the Coast-to-Coast Combat Hour. You might be wondering why I'm not sitting with my headset on and being joined by Matt Hawkins, as I usually am when we do the podcast on Tuesday nights. That's because Matt's under the weather, and if you watched last week's podcast, you know he's having some technical difficulties too. So we were going to take this week off, but UFC 305 is this weekend, so I figured we couldn't go through the week without doing our picks for UFC 305. Matt is too sick to even think about the card. And again, we thought about taking off, but we had taken off a couple weeks ago because I had the power issues here on the East Coast, and you know how that goes. We didn't want to leave you guys without any content this week for something, especially if one of us could go like me. So if it looks a little brighter, it's because I'm recording this as I got the news from Matt that he wasn't going to be able to make the podcast this week. So, and most of you guys, I mean, we always record Tuesday nights. Contender Series started today, August 13th. So most of you guys are probably watching Contender Series anyway when we go live. So I figured I would pre-record this, give you my picks for UFC 305. And really quick, just because it is Contender Series season, what is it, season 8 now? There are a few fighters that I'm interviewing for Spectation Sports. So to not leave you guys with a very short podcast this week, Torrez Finney, who's competing next week on the second Contender Series, week 2, middleweight. This is his second time back. I interviewed him for Spectation Sports. For you guys that don't know, I do a lot of feature stories for Spectation Sports on fighters that are usually on the come up and wind up on Contender Series or PFL Challenger Series or what have you. They're on the radar for someone somewhere, and they all fight under the banner of Spectation Sports, which is a streaming service, and I do a lot of written content for them. So if you want to check them out, there's a code in the description for you guys to get 10% off if you want to check out other fighters. Trevor Peake came from there. Danny Barlow, who fought last week, I've spoken to him a lot, came from there. I'm trying to think off the top of my head who else has been through Spectation Sports and on Contender Series or UFC card. Obviously, Torrez Finney, like I just mentioned, that interview will be up next. If you want to fast forward to that, I'll drop a link in the description. Or if you're listening to this on Spotify, just wait for my UFC picks to be over, and you can check out that interview there. Again, he fights on August 20th, so that's this time next week. Again, apologies for the difference. Let me know what you think of this pre-recorded stuff. Let me know if you like it. If you don't, let me know how my audio is, because I'm using this mic that I don't really get to use that much. And without further ado, let's do some picks for UFC 305. So we always do the main card picks, the pay-per-view portion. This is UFC 305 has them returning to Perth in Australia, down under. So I'll start with the bottom of the card. Carlos Pretes. Let me bring up. Make sure I bring up everybody. I usually share the screen with you guys when I do it with Matt, but it's hard to do this when I don't have him here. So I don't want to make sure I have my odds right and everything. All right, here we go. Carlos Prates versus Li Jingliang. My pick for this fight is a fight that kicks off the main portion of the card. Again, this could change because it's Tuesday, and we know the UFC has changed the stuff up in the past right before the event gets started. My pick for the welterweight bout that kicks off the pay-per-view portion of the card is Carlos, just because he's been on a 9-fight win streak, and I'm checking out my notes here. 9-fight win streak. His last 3 wins were in the UFC. He's got a lot of finishes. Jing Liang is a bit coming off of a loss, if I'm not mistaken, and this guy Prates, however you want to say it, he's been on a roll, and I apologize if I'm messing up his name, but I don't think that roll stops at UFC 305. So I'm picking him. I believe he's the favorite too. I have some odds written down. I didn't write them all down. The DraftKings odds, oddly enough, if you go on the UFC website, they have odds there. And then if you go on the live odds for DraftKings.com, first of all, the UFC doesn't show all the odds. Second of all, we all know that the site has never been 100% accurate in the past. But that's neither here nor there. Next fight on the card, heavyweight bout, Tai Tuivasa versus Jairzinho Rozenstruik. There's definitely a knockout coming in this fight. I don't see it going the distance. I'm calling for a finish, probably round 2. My pick is Jairzinho Rozenstruik. Sorry, I'm messing up his name. Only because, and I know Tuivasa is a Mark Hunt protege, but I just feel like Rozenstruik is a little bit more technical. I could see like Tuivasa forcing the like toe to toe, because that's his game. But I could see Rozenstruik kind of like retreating a little, coming back and firing back, and when he sees an opening, kind of like what Max Holloway did to Justin Gaethje, with that whole thing. The mid fight of the card, lightweight bout, Matthias Gamrot versus Dan Hooker. The favorite in the fight, minus 325 at the time of this recording, is Gamrot, and I'm also picking him as well. He's on a 3-fight win streak, and his if you look at who he's fought, solid opponents. So that's why I'm going Gamrot on this one. I'm not sure if like, I like Dan Hooker, and I know he might have a length advantage, height, reach, and all that. He does fit that ectomorphic style of fighters, but I just think when some people are on a streak like Gamrot and Carlos Prates, I think that they're probably like the high they're riding is not going to end, especially on a pay-per-view. Moving on to the co-main event, Kai Kara-France versus Steve Erceg. Both guys coming off a loss, but Erceg was it was against Pantoja. It was decision. I think he's got that dog in him to kind of make his name still relevant. Both guys probably want to do the same thing. I just feel like Erceg is probably riding a little bit more steam into this fight, especially again pay-per-view. And it's a comeback card for Adesanya. I know there's like a lot of local fighters on the card, and I think Erceg is from there. I don't know if he claims there. I think he trains out of Wilkes MMA. I forget his other notes, but I will have down the other notes that I saw on him. But he was minus 162 favorite on as of this recording from DraftKings odds, and so far I don't disagree with the favorites. I mean, there's a lot to agree with them on, especially when you look at where they're at in their careers and how they measure up against the competition they're facing. Finally, main event. Israel Adesanya's return to the cage. He's facing Dricus du Plessis. So Adesanya's the favorite here. According to UFC.com, he's minus 130. I saw a little bit more of a favorite when I went on DraftKings. I didn't write that down. However, I'm siding with Adesanya as a favorite only because some of the stuff he's been saying as far as like his time away versus what he did. Like if he fought 3 fights the 1 year, and then 2 fights again in 2023, and I know we haven't really seen him this year in 24. He said he was going to take some time off, and I don't blame guys like him for taking some time off. He's right at the point of the end of his prime. I heard an interview he did with TMZ Sports where he was talking about his age and kind of like listening to his body and talking about how it's already getting harder to cut weight and things like that. And I don't fault guys like him or guys like Brandon Moreno when they say they need a break after they fight. The fights that they fought, and as many so close together. I mean, 3 fights in a year is usually the average. Most guys want 3 fights in a year, and then to do a couple more after that. And then you look at the rivalry with Pereira, the loss to Sean Strickland. Like there's just so much going on there. And it's funny enough, talking about Sean Strickland, just as I started recording this, Dana White already announced that the winner of this fight gets Sean Strickland. So it's the middleweight division could use a little shakeup. So, but as far as like keeping it entertaining, If you're looking at Duplessis and Adesanya for the next person to hold the belt after Saturday, Adesanya is probably the better man for it. So that's why I'm picking him. Do I want to see Strickland versus any of them again? I'd rather see Strickland versus Adesanya again more than Duplessis. Um, I also would rather see, talking about the middleweight division, Torrez Finney is the fighter that I interviewed for Spectation Sports. And again, he fights next week. One of the things he and I talked about that I say towards the end of the interview is how the division could use someone like him to kind of shake things up. I could see him catapulting quickly up the rankings in the UFC. So it should be an interesting time. We're coming towards it. We're mid-August. Year's almost over, so it'll be interesting to see who the fresh crop of fighters coming in off a Contender Series and how they do, when we enter 2025. Remember, their broadcast deal, UFC's broadcast deal, is supposed to be up in 25 with ESPN. A lot of different things happening over there that keep the sport and the promotion interesting. Again, links will be in the description for that interview. If you're listening to this on Spotify, it's up next. Thank you so much again for listening to my picks. We'll see how right or wrong I am. I'll be putting stuff up. Make sure you subscribe to my newsletter. Links for that are on the bottom. Thanks again for the support. And again, sorry. Hopefully Matt is at least feeling better next week. In the meantime, make sure you follow us. Combat Hour Twitter, Coast-to-Coast on Instagram, me on Twitter at Carbazal, MMA Hawk 21 on Twitter and Instagram for Matt. And wish him a get well soon. All right, guys, take care. Interview's up next.